Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, Curious Cuttlefish. Today we are going to be talking about knitting for crocheters. Hello everyone, my name is Sarah. If you are new to my channel, welcome. And if you are a returning viewer, hello and how wonderful it is to see you again. So today I had a request about knitting, and I'm going to be talking about knitting from a crocheter's perspective because I am primarily a crocheter and I have taught myself how to knit. And so I wanted to give you guys some tips and pointers on things that I have learned as I have expanded my journey on learning to knit and making knit items. So let's jump right in, and I want to talk about the knitting needles that are out there. So let me grab some of these for you so I can show you guys. There are 3 different types of knitting needles, and I should probably actually have these out so I can show you. They're next to me and they are around. Okay, oops. See all my items? Alright. These are straight knitting needles. You have what are called circular knitting needles where they have this cable on them. And then there are also DPNs, or double pointed needles. So these are the 3 types of needles you have for knitting. And I'm going to just give you a brief overview on each one and tell you what they do. So we shall start with these straight knitting needles. And a lot of people, when you think of knitting, you picture these straight knitting needles. And what these are used for flat projects like dishcloths. You can use them for scarves. These make flat panels, but you are limited to how large you can make it based off of how long your knitting needle is. They come in different sizes, and I'm trying to see if I have longer ones here. These are bamboo. These are metal. You can see these are 2 different sizes, and then I also have some that are in plastic, and they are all different sizes. So your knitting needles can come in different materials, and these straight ones, like I said, are good for making flat objects. So let me tell you a little bit about each material you can get your knitting needles in. And I would say they are just like crochet hooks. If you are familiar with crochet, you will know that, I'm dropping things, you will know that bamboo or wooden crochet hooks do not glide through the yarn as easily. They grip the yarn more. So knitting with bamboo, it'll grip the yarn more, and it doesn't slide off as easily. This can be good if you're a beginner and you are learning how to knit and you don't want to drop any stitches, because it is not as easy to correct knitting as it is to correct crochet. So if you want more grip, definitely use the bamboo. And then you have plastic, which is like a nice midpoint between bamboo and metal. So this one has some grip, but it does have smoothness to it, so it does slide a lot better than a wood or bamboo knitting needle. Then finally here we have our aluminum or metal knitting needles, and these ones do not grip the yarn much at all, so it will slide very quickly off of this. You will graduate to this point, some sooner than others, and this will allow you to knit faster. I do not suggest that you start with metal knitting needles because it's so easy to drop stitches, guys. I dropped so many stitches and I would rip out so many projects because I did not know how to correct dropped stitches, and it takes a while to learn that. Okay, so I said a while, but it took me a month. It still takes a while, and I ripped out many projects. So If you're a crocheter, I believe you can pick up drop stitches a lot faster and easier than someone who is just learning how to knit, because we are more familiar with the fibers, we're used to working with yarn, we're used to detangling because this is a normal thing that occurs when you work with the fiber arts. And so I do believe you can graduate to using metal more often. I know some people do prefer using the bamboo or the plastic. I have found that my favorite is using metal as far as material for your knitting needles. So that is a review on the materials. That tells you what straight knitting needles are for. Let me move on to circular needles. Okay, so circular needles, these are used for, you can make flat projects on them. They can behave just like your straight needles, it's just they're joined at the bottom. This also gives you a lot more length and space for what you can be making. You can be making larger items with circular needles. You would need circular needles for, say, a project like a baby blanket. You have a lot more space on here than you would get with straight needles, and it doesn't take up as much space because they are attached, and because they do have this cable that is flexible. You are able to fold it up, and you can take your projects with you a lot easier than you can do with straight needles. And for this reason, I suggest, and I do prefer, circular needles over straight needles. I have found that I'm able to take my projects with me a lot easier, and I can push my project down onto my cable section, and I do not have to worry about it falling off my needles. Whereas with the straight needles, I've had that happen where the whole project just comes off the needle, and then you're sitting there trying to thread your needle through all those little loops. So I suggest circular needles. As you can see, so this was my first set that I bought of circular needles. I just got a cheap set from Amazon. I was learning to knit. I did not think that I wanted to spend a lot of money figuring out if this was a hobby or craft for me. So I got this set, Sundry Goods. I can have a link to it in the description beneath if you're interested. But it came, you get all the different knitting needle sizes, and you get stitch markers, and so you can use any type of yarn and just get the correct knitting needle to go with it. These do not go by US terms, they just tell you the millimeter size, which is probably why I go by millimeters. I'm just so used to using that size over US terms. But so I got this set, and I was so excited to make a hat, and then I found out that the length of the cable matters. You cannot make a hat on circular needles that have a cable this length. You need to buy circular needles that have a shorter cable. It needs to be, I think it's 18 inches, I don't know, I don't see it on here. So I got another cheap set of circular needles from Amazon. And this is all the sizes. And with this length, you are able to knit a hat. And that was the project that I really wanted to make, and so these are the circular needles that I got for it. These needles also work well for doing scarves or other straight items that the width fits within this space. So unlike crochet, where you have the versatility of making many projects with one hook, knitting you need many different tools to make your item. So that is circular knitting needles. Know the project you want to make before you purchase your knitting needles. And if you want to do hats, you're going to need circulars, something like this. If you want to do dishcloths, you can use circulars. You can use straights, scarves. Again, you can use circular, you can use straight. But know that if you get straight needles, you are limiting yourself to what you can make on them. So these are circular needles. My starting projects were dishcloths and hats, so this set was the absolute best beginning set for me. Had I known that you need to keep track of the length of this cable, I would have ordered this one first, and I probably would not have this set, which is the first set that I ordered before I knew anything about knitting. This set was the better one. I still use this set sometimes. Not that often. Sometimes. I graduated from it, but I do teach on it because it is bamboo. It is easier to learn and not drop the stitches, and I haven't had a problem with them. Kind of like when you start to crochet, you get your first hooks that are inexpensive and then invest in more expensive ones. Okay, and then finally, these are DPNs, double pointed needles, and you use these for closing off. So when I make a hat, you start off with them on the circular needles, and then eventually as you're decreasing, it gets too small for you to continue working on it with the circular needles. So you need to transfer it to DPNs. Some people use the magic loop, which is where you use a much longer circular needle to do your decreases. I do not like that method. I prefer the DPNs. So you start off with it on your circular, you stitch so many stitches onto one, you add another, and you keep going around until your work is on it like this. Once you have your work on there, you have one extra needle. I'm trying to hold this. And you use this one to replace one that you're working on. And you get that needle. And then you just work your way around. I'm trying to show you guys, but it would be something like that. That is how DPNs work. This was my first set of DPNs. I don't plan on getting a new set of DPNs. I got this from Amazon, a cheap set of DPNs, and it has all the different sizes, and they're each in their own individual bag. You get 5 of each, but this one, the other one, is floating somewhere in here. So I do suggest getting this. I love these because they are bamboo and they do grip the yarn, and because they are double pointed needles, you have your work is coming off of both ends of it, and I wanted that extra grip so that they don't fall out while I am working on a project. I love these. I still use them. I don't see any reason I will replace them. I don't think I want metal ones. I really like the bamboo for my DPNs. So this set is the first set I bought, and I think it's the only set I'm going to have. I really enjoy them, and they're inexpensive. Not sure how much. I'll be putting the prices of the things I'm talking about up above, unless they were gifts, like my straight needles, which I do not know. I don't know how much these cost because I didn't buy them. I bought the circular ones, and those are the ones that I use. After I had been working on my circular needles like these, and I had made a few hats, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 hats, and I decided I really did like knitting. I then graduated, and Mr. Cuttlefish encouraged me to invest in a good pair of knitting needles where they would be the ones that I use, whether I am very experienced in wanting to make sweaters and socks and all that kind of stuff, or still learning and wanting to do shawls and other things, learning how to do lace work. So I did a lot of research, and I settled, and I bought a Chai-Gu set. I am so happy with this set. I highly recommend it. I don't think I need to buy anything else now that I have this, except for I did get a small one because I want to make socks, but I got special circulars for that. Other than that, this set has all the different sized needles, from small ones to the larger ones, and the cables to go with it. So these cables I got the 4-inch set. So these cables come in 8 inches to 22 inches, and that allows you to make a large variety of projects just with these. I got the 4-inch set because these sets come with needles that are either 4 inches long or 5 inches long. The 4-inch long one allows you to do hats, and I love to knit hats. And so that was the reason that I got the smaller set. I find that hats are probably one of my favorite things to knit, and I wanted a set that would allow me to do that. If you get the 5-inch set, the circular cable that comes with it is just slightly too long to do a hat. So you can always have your cable be a little too small because you can bunch up your stitches on the cable and make it a bit larger than what the cable allots for. You can't make it smaller because then you can't get your needles to go together when you're knitting them. So I did graduate to this one. Mr. Cuttlefish spoiled me and he allowed me to he wanted top of the line so that I have the best tools needed for the craft. And I found from my research that this one was the best recommended. I definitely see why. The quality is there. You're able to interchange your needles with the cable sizes, so you have all the sizes needed just in this kit, as opposed to these sets that I've purchased where you have to have all the different needles and they're already on a cable, and then if you need a different cable size, you need to purchase more needles. Which is what makes getting tools for knitting so expensive, and why I understand now why these are so pricey, because you get all of them. So this is a very good set if you want to make hats. I do recommend it, as well as my DPNs. I still use those. Okay, and yarn. Did I talk about yarn? I don't remember. The yarn I would recommend that you use when you are learning to knit. When you are familiar with crochet, you are familiar with so many different fibers, how they work, and because of this, I knew that I wanted to practice knitting dishcloths, but I also knew that cotton does not have as much give in it as acrylic, so I made dishcloths out of acrylic first until I got used to the tension I needed to hold my yarn with in order to knit. So I would suggest you do similar, that you use acrylic before moving on to cotton. Unless you love cotton and you're able to work with it, it makes my hands tired, and so until I was able to get my tension right and holding my knitting needles right and knitting properly, it was very difficult for me to use the cotton. So I suggest starting off with acrylic. I suggest starting off with worsted weight or heavier all the way up to a bulky, because then your projects will go a lot faster. Crochet, we're able to go very quickly because we're used to that craft, and it also, in general, is faster than knitting. And so knitting will take you a while, and it takes a little bit more patience because your stitches are so much smaller, and so your progress does not seem as great for the time that you put into it. But the projects that you make out of it make it so worth it. So, yeah, that's a basic overview of the materials and things that I wanted to chat with you guys about on knitting. Let me know if you are interested in me doing a short series on how to knit. I would be more than happy to show you guys how I do it, because I am primarily a crocheter, so I know that I hold my yarn differently. I typically hold my yarn in my left hand because I am a crocheter and I'm used to crocheting with my right. Knitters will usually, American knitters will usually knit and hold the yarn in their right hand, and I just couldn't do that because it was awkward for me because I'm used to holding the yarn in my left. So I would be happy to show you guys how I hold my yarn, how I knit. My current knit project is right here. I am knitting a hat, and this is my first one out of a fine 2-weight yarn. I love it. I absolutely love knitting with fine yarn. I never thought I would because it takes forever, but it is beautiful, and I would be so happy to teach you guys what I am learning and show you guys something new. So let me know in the comments if that is something you would like me to do. I would be happy to do a short beginner series on the handful of cast-ons I know, and how to knit a basic dishcloth, and yeah, how I hold my yarn, all that fun stuff. So thank you so much for those of you who watch and comment on my videos. I am so floored every time I read your guys' comments and know that people watch these videos. It is a joy for me to create them, and I just love spending a little time with each and every one of you. So thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you all tomorrow with a yarn review, and yeah, just leave a comment below. Let me know if you would like me to continue this little chat series where I talk to you about knitting from a crocheter's perspective, and I can show you how I do my knitting.